welcome back, Michael. So,
Right.
ready to go?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Schell. I'm going to read from this for a little bit, and then we're going to go off script here. But I'm pleased to be here as the new chairman of the Broadcasting Board of Governors. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting of the board. I hereby call the meeting to order. This is an open meeting of the Broadcasting Board of Governors. This meeting is being held in compliance with the government in the Sunshine Act. The live broadcast will also be available on the BBG website, www.bbg.gov. Governor Meehan cannot be here today, but is graciously joining us by phone from the West Coast, where it's very early. So thank you, Michael, for being on the phone. We now have 5 governors, so we satisfy the quorum requirement of the International Broadcasting Act, and we may now conduct business based on majority vote. I think it's the first time in a while we've actually had a quorum on the board, so I am thrilled. Following the confirmation of the United States Senate, the President appointed myself, Matt Armstrong, and Ambassador Ryan Crocker to the board on August 5th. In addition, a gentleman by the name of Ken Weinstein has been nominated by the President, and he was nominated in late July, and we're hopeful that the Senate will act early in September on his nomination and give us yet another board member. So before I get going, what I want to do very quickly is give a chance for the 3 of us who are new to introduce ourselves to everybody and to the people who happen to be watching. So let me start with Matt Armstrong. Matt and I were I was nominated a long time ago, wallowed in obscurity, and then finally Matt was nominated, and my nomination started moving along when Matt got nominated, so we got to spend a lot of time together. We're both from California. Matt, introduce yourself really quickly to the people here.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a privilege and an honor to have been nominated and confirmed the support of the Senate and support of the President. This is really fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to working on the board. I think the agency is a tremendously important part of our foreign policy and for the United States in general. Born and raised in Los Angeles, USC graduate. We almost had 2 USC grads on the board at one time, Dennis Mulhall being the other.
The Cal Berkeley grads outnumber you still with Libby and David Enser and myself, so we still got you.
That's just. Should we talk football? No, we can't. Looking forward to doing the work. This is fascinating. Anybody wants to reach out and talk, look forward to the engagement. I think this is the first time a blogger's been on the board. The humble beginnings, my career choices in the past have been interesting. They seem to be culminating. My knowledge management background of getting the right information to the right person at the right time seems to be appropriate for this new venture, as well as the public diplomacy training at various places, USC, et cetera, and the Mountain Runner blog. So this will be an interesting experience, and I look forward to working with my fellow board members.
Great. We're also joined, while Matt and I were starting down our confirmation process, we were joined by Ambassador Ryan Crocker, who is an unbelievable patriot of the United States, has served just about everywhere that you would want somebody to serve. And when he was nominated, I remember the minute that I heard you were nominated, I was thrilled to be able to serve with you and work with you, and thrilled to have you here. So Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself to the rest of the people here?
Thank you, Jeff. It is an honor and a privilege for me to serve on this board. I'm delighted to have had the confidence of the President in nominating me and the Senate in confirming me. I was a career Foreign Service officer, 38 years with the State Department, 6 times as ambassador, most recently up until last year as ambassador to Afghanistan. I am not a native of California. I am from the great state of Washington originally, and we would prefer not to talk about football. Unlike Matt and Jeff, I do not bring a media background to this position. I do bring extensive experience overseas as a consumer of the products of the the BBG and its affiliated institutions. So I hope to be helpful from that perspective. I also hope to be able to play a role in ensuring that our weave with the State Department and other relevant federal entities is solid and appropriate. And I also look forward to working with members of Congress, many of whom I have had the privilege of testifying before for many years. But it's a delight to be here. And I must say I am so pleased and relieved that we have the accumulated experience and wisdom of Michael and Susan to keep us at least heading generally in the right direction. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ryan. So I do want to echo one thing that Ryan said. You know, we are very fortunate, Michael dialing in and Susan McHugh here, to have not just the accumulated knowledge, but they have been working so hard over the past, feels like 10 years. You know, I think what's interesting about Matt, Ryan, and I, and as well as Michael and Susan, is we all want to be here. When I complained to Susan about waiting 11 months between being nominated and being confirmed, she laughs at me and says she waited 3 years. I think so. This is not a place we're not here for any other reason than we want to be here, and we believe in this place. And I'm going to talk about that in a couple minutes for a second or two. Before I do, though, this is the first time we've had a quorum in a while, and we've had, I believe, 4 board members leave the board during the time between now and when we last had a quorum on the board. I actually know each of the 4, and so I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the 4 of them, and then ask, Michael, Susan, Matt, or Ryan if they want to say anything. Let me start with, let me go kind of in reverse order here. Victor Ashe is somebody who, during the last 11 months, I have talked to quite frequently. He is when we talk about somebody who wanted to be here and did the work, there's nobody probably in the history of the BBG board who has put in more time and more effort than Victor Ashe did for this organization and for this board. He came with an illustrious career, longtime mayor of Knoxville. I know many people from Knoxville where he is beloved there. Went on to be an ambassador and then joined this board. I think I was looking at the annals, maybe the only board member in the history of the board to have a perfect attendance record. I hope to match him, but came to every meeting, put in the work, and has assured me that he's going to continue to be interested in U.S. international broadcasting and will be able to help this organization going forward, if not here at the table as a board member. So I want to thank Victor. Michael Litton. Michael Litton is actually an old friend of mine. I've known Michael Litton since the early 90s. Michael was asked by the White House to step in when Walter resigned as presiding chair, and was told 1 meeting, maybe 2, until they would have another chairman, and that stretched to, I don't know, somebody can tell me, 18 months or something like that. Michael's got a busy job, but he put a lot of time into this place too, and did a good job of kind of keeping things moving along while the board transitioned. And he also has assured me that he believes in this place and will continue to help us kind of where we can from his perch at Sony. Tara Sonnenschein has left us. She was at the State Department. She was the State Department's representative, sitting in the seat that Dan's now sitting in. Tara is somebody also I've known, worked with my sister and have known her over the years, and I think did an extremely good job in a very calm, stable way of kind of representing the State Department's interests and helping form a bridge between the State Department and this organization, and was very helpful to me personally as I was trying to learn, some of the history here and some of the goings-ons of the place. And then finally, Dennis Mulhop. Dennis gave Victor a run from his money as far as time and effort and belief in this place. I talked to Dennis quite frequently when I was first nominated. Taught me a lot about history. Taught me a lot about the various issues around here, and he joins the other 4 in agreeing to also kind of continue to support this place and contribute where he can. He is a USC grad, so we may not take him up on that, but we'll see what happens. But Wonderful. Dennis is a wonderful individual. I had a chance to spend a lot of time with him. So I know all four. I think they served the board well and served the country well. Before we vote on a resolution honoring them, does anybody want to say anything about any of these four? Susan?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say that. I just want to concur with everything that you laid out. Over the years, all of my former colleagues on the board have become very close friends, and I'm grateful for their guidance, and I'm looking forward to continuing the friendships, and I think we can look for ways to include them in our progress as we go forward.
Great. Michael, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I too want to echo Susan's thoughts. The 3 years that we served with them, the board was able to put together a strategy that we're in our second year of implementing, and it would have been possible without the expertise and the experience of Michael and Victor and Dennis and Tara. I mean, there's a lot of every one of those board members is committed to keeping the mission and the journalistic mission going forward and made great contributions. So I was honored to serve with them, and I thank them for their service.
Great. So any other comments? Anybody else want to say anything? Okay, so in tab 2 of the briefing book, there are resolutions honoring these four board members and their service on the board. This will actually be our first vote as a new board with new quorum. So does anybody want to move that we adopt these resolutions? Mr. Crocker has motioned. Is there a second?
I second.
Ooh, Matt gets in under the gun in front of Susie to second it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
It is carried unanimously. Okay, so I have neglected to introduce myself, so let me do that for a second, and then I want to talk maybe for a few minutes here about some things. So first of all, I'm Jeff Shell. It's a little intimidating for me to be here because I do not have a long history in either international broadcasting or journalism, and we're in the presence of people who have had long histories in both. My history has all been in media and all been in the private sector. California native, proud California native, although Philadelphia Eagles fan, just to get the football thing going. And I worked for the Walt Disney Company, then for News Corp and Fox, and then for Comcast and NBC, where I've spent the last 3 years of my life in London in their international business. I am here because I believe in the Broadcasting Board of Governors. I believe in U.S. international broadcasting. I think, I don't want to speak for my fellow board members, but I think we feel like we're in sync on a lot of what we believe. On the plane over, I was watching David Ensor's town hall that you had last week. I download everything on the VOA website to my iPad, so on 14-hour flights I can watch whatever I want to watch. And David said something interesting. He said, basically the mission of VOA is to export the First Amendment, which I thought was a very interesting kind of way of putting it. I think, in other words, I believe, and I think we all believe, that the way we showcase what we believe in as Americans, freedom and democracy, the best way we can showcase that is by free media, is by telling people the truth and getting it to them. There's two parts of that. One, it's telling the story, and two, it's finding a way to get it to people. And I think there's no place in the government, in my personal view, that has a more pure mission than this place. I know it gets complicated. I know it gets hard. I know there's lots of things that make the job difficult every day. But if you boil this place down to its pure and simple mission, this mission is pure, it's inspiring, and it's important. And so that's why I'm here. I spent enough time with Matt and Ambassador Crocker and Michael and Susan to know that they share my views. And hopefully we'll be joined on the board by Ken and others eventually, and can as a board help figure out how to enact that mission in a better way. I think just to acknowledge, we have a lot to do, right? So this organization is a weird mix of things that were envisioned over the last 30 or 40 years, some dating back all the way to the Cold War. I can tell you from my day job that our world is changing pretty rapidly. It's hard enough in the private sector to try to figure out what to do when people are watching things on iPads and accessing things with mobile phones and doing things. Our kids do things so much differently than we do. And then you go to the world we live in with the BBG operating in, 50, 60 different places with different technologies and different histories, and to try to make sense of that and figure out how to accomplish our mission in that rapidly changing environment is daunting. And so we have a lot of work to do in this organization. And one thing I will say, and I think my fellow board members agree with me on this, is we're not going to agree on everything in this room, not just the board members, but everybody who's here interested in this. We're not going to agree on everything, but we have a lot of work to do, and what we've got to do is find the best solutions to some of these things and move forward, because we have to change the organization to better address this pure mission in this changing world. And by the way, the world's not going to stop changing. So it'd be nice if we could put a pin in it and stop the world from changing and change the organization, but the organization is going to keep changing as the world keeps changing. And I think actually in some ways it's very very exciting. And I'm confident in the board. I think the new members, Matt and Ryan and I, share a certain rhythm already. With Susan and Michael, hopefully the five of us will spend some time together and share that rhythm, and we'll eventually have, other people here. So let me talk for a second. Let me go down to a little bit of the more mundane here for a second. Future meetings. So I feel very strongly that this board has to be a board. It has to set strategic direction for the organization and the people that we have in the organization who are wonderful and hardworking go do their jobs. I think the problem with the way that this board was envisioned and the way it's operated by times is we like to dabble in management, and that is not how a good board operates. What we need to do is we need to hire great people, give them the support and the strategic direction to go do their jobs, and then get out of the way, so to speak. So in that vein, what I'm going to attempt to do, and I think all of my fellow board members agree with me, is we're going to get back to a rhythm of board meetings every other month. The organization, you can see by just the people around the table here and on the phone, is often paralyzed when there's a board meeting. A lot of work gets done, and a lot of people have to interrupt their lives, and it's too often to do that every month. So we're going to be doing it every other month, and we're going to try to keep the meetings. We're going to try to follow the IG's great advice and have a consent calendar where we try to deal with much of the business right at the beginning of the meeting, so we can turn to the important things, which are hearing from our entity heads more in depth about what they're doing and the challenges they're facing, and then also spending some time really thinking and talking about strategy, because that's what we need to do as a board to inform the management team. I believe in nice, tight board meetings. We'll try to start on time and end on time. And then my goal would be that the months when we do not have board meetings will be dedicated to committee meetings, which will allow us to have a thoughtful couple days on committees, whatever we decide the committees are going to be. And we'll also have the benefit of getting the committee reports out well in advance of the board meeting the next month, so we can review them and think about them, as opposed to getting them right before the meeting. So that's kind of the idea of future meetings. The entity heads who are feeling like they're relieved of their monthly reports are not. So sorry, guys. Still, monthly reports are still very important. Want to hear from people, hear what's going on, but you should think of them as updates as opposed to board presentations. They're updates for the board, and I enjoyed reading a lot of the ones this month. They are all over the place. They're all very interesting, but they're all over the place. So one of the things we have to do is standardize, though. We can talk about that kind of in a future meeting. So back in December of 2012, the previous board, when I say previous board, obviously Michael and Susan were on it, but I mean the last board that had a quorum, approved a meeting schedule for 2013, which has kind of gone by the wayside as we've lost quorum. So given the new membership on the board, I'm gonna put some dates on the table here for the next two meetings of 2013 while we think about the meeting schedule for 2014. So I'm gonna formally propose that the board meet again on Wednesday, October 23rd here in Washington, and on Wednesday, December 18th here in Washington. Those will be our final two board meetings of the year. Obviously, since we're going to try to do 6 a year, I would urge and encourage all board members to try to follow Victor's and Dennis's example and try to attend every meeting, but I know we're all busy, so hopefully we can do it. And occasionally we'll have to call in by phone or do video conference or something like that. But those are the two dates that I propose. Is there a second on the table for those dates? Second by Susan. before I call for a vote, by voting, you're not saying you're going to be there. You're just approving these as dates, and you're going to try to be there. So it's been proposed and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, those are our two formal dates for the rest of the year, and we will work very hard on people's schedules to find 6 dates in 2014 that work for everybody. We also have to talk as a board whether we still want to do a meeting in Prague once a year, which has been the standard, whether we want to do a meeting in Miami with Carlos once a year, which has been the standard. I think it's a good thing sometimes to do meetings out of town and have the chance to really understand and hear, and maybe even out of the country and other places but Prague. So we'll discuss that as when the board kind of meets in the coming days. So one other housekeeping item I want to get to before I kind of conclude my talk. So Susie Carroll, who's over here on the right side, I don't know if the webcam can see her, is I don't know if she's been officially appointed, but she's been officially appointed the executive director of the board. And I want to quickly, just for the benefit of the people here in the room and also for people watching, explain what that means. And thank Lynn, by the way, for donating one of her best people to the cause. The first day I was officially on the board, the day I got confirmed, I got 78 emails, BBG related, which was wonderful and great, but was probably too many emails. So I think the board desperately needs to get back to a place where we are serving as an advisory body and not a management team. And so what I'm hoping is that between Dick Lobo, who runs IBB, and Susie, who's now the executive director of the board, that they will serve as the funnel of information. Obviously, any board member can call anybody they want at any time, and obviously any member of our management team or any head can call whoever they want. I'm not trying to restrict that, but what I'm hoping is that we have some kind of a standardized funnel for information so we don't get overwhelmed. So what I would ask of everybody is to try to go through Dick and Susie, at least at the beginning of some of the issues, when you need information from the board or if the board members need information from management team, and we'll try to use that as a more standardized process. There has been executive directors of the board in the past. I see 2 of them in the room right now with Brian and Jeff. This role that Susie is taking on is a little bit different in the sense that I think when you guys were executive directors of the board, there were a number of different IBB functions that reported to you. This is not meant to be that. This is a coordinating and supervisory position and a communicating position. Board operations will work for Susie as along with continuing to work for Paul as it has on the legal side. But this is meant as being a way to kind of coordinate the board's activities and be a place where the board can go and a place where management can go and somehow funnel the communication, because it's gotten a little bit diffuse. But I think we're thrilled to have somebody like Susie on board. I think we all love her, and thank you, Susie, for taking this on. Okay, so let me now get to the last thing I wanted to say, which is probably the most important thing I wanted to say, which is, so I was a nominee for 11 months, and I know this isn't going to laugh at me because she was 3 years, but, and I came here every month, and I spent, as many of you know, I spent a couple days every month trying to meet as many people as I could. One of the things that struck me, and I think for those of you who are here, we take it for granted a little bit, is we have a lot of very, very good people and very committed people that work for this organization, who are working really hard and doing really good work across a number of fields. And it can't be that fun to work in a place where, you know, most people in the United States don't even know you exist. You hear about bad morale, all sorts of stuff. We have work to do on all that, obviously, but I think the core of what I came away was, God, we have some really great people, and particularly on the journalist side, where we have journalists who are in some cases, you know, risking their personal safety, risking their lives to go out and do good work. This is, you know, that's really the tip of the spear. That's really where this organization and its mission meets the everyday realities of the world that we live in. So, you know, I don't know how much of the organization is watching. Hopefully some of them, but I do think as we start, I think one of the great assets of this place is the people that we have. We have great people. They're doing great work, and I wanted to say that in addition to the pure mission, one of the things that excites me about the coming challenges is that we have a great group of people here, and thank you everybody who is here, and thank you everybody who's listening or watching, if anybody is. And by the way, one of the goals should be getting more people watching these board meetings, because they are tough to watch, I would say, from personal experience. So, along that line, I'd like to continue the tradition of the past boards by reminding everybody the difficult and dangerous work that our journalists do. Journalists are at the heart of this agency's mission, as I just said, and they face risks every day in carrying out their duties. And let me talk about a couple of them in tradition of the past board meetings. I think it's a good tradition. So yesterday, August 20th, was the one-year anniversary since Al Hurra TV correspondent Bashar Fahmy disappeared while reporting in Aleppo, Syria. Bashar remains missing, unfortunately, and incommunicado. The BBG board has been profoundly concerned about Bashar since he went missing, and it's been a very long year of uncertainty and pain for Bashar's wife and children and his family, and for his Al Hurra family. I ask that anybody publicly with information about Bashar's whereabouts or well-being to please step forward and contact us or to contact NBN and Al Hurra. I repeat the board's call for immediate release of Bashar wherever he is, as well as other journalists being held in Syria, including Austin Tice and James Foley. Khadija Ismailova, an investigative journalist with RFVRL's Azerbaijan service, faces escalating threats in Azerbaijan following her reporting on government corruption. Khadija was subjected to online abuse in March 2012 when footage obtained through hidden surveillance equipment planted in her apartment appeared on pro-government websites and in official media. A month later, she was also the subject of a fabricated obscene video posted online. The Azeri government responded to these incidents with a public promise to investigate, but to date, as far as we know, no such investigation has taken place. Late last month, unknown parties released a new video containing illegally obtained images of her. So the board joins RFVRL and Reporters Without Borders and numerous international NGOs in calling for an investigation into the threats and harassment towards Khadija and for the perpetrators to be brought to justice. Echo Kavkaza, RFVRL's Georgian service, which broadcasts to Abkhazia and South Ossetia, received a letter last week from the so-called official representative of the president of Abkhazia that labeled the broadcaster a propagandist information service, adding that authorities at some point will have to take certain measures. RFVRL, which provides a balanced alternative to official media in these separatist regions, considers the letter a direct threat to its stringers on the ground. Also this month, during an outbreak of violent protests in Cairo, Elizabeth Errett, Middle East correspondent for the Voice of America, was pulled from a car and briefly detained by police. Her colleague, VOA freelance cameraman reporter Jafet Weeks, was also detained and roughed up. Both journalists were let go without charge. The board urges officials and local authorities to ensure the safety of all of our journalists operating in high-risk locations and to punish those that misuse authority, threaten, or harm reporters. Also, it's not in the script, but I understand, Libby, from you that in Cambodia things are getting more tenuous there as well. So that's one thing I would add to the report here, that we are with our reporters in Cambodia and hope that their safety will continue to be assured by the embassy there. And lastly, I'm saddened to report that Simon Wade Kazmiro, a reporter working on VOA's South Sudan and Focus radio show, died in a road accident on August 5th. Colleagues noted that Simon was a hardworking and dedicated journalist and would go out of his way to get all elements of the story, no matter how long it took or how difficult or dangerous the assignment was. We grieve the loss of Simon, and we extend our condolences to his family and colleagues and the VOA family. So with that, let me lead to kind of a couple more housekeeping items before we move to closed session for a couple of our closed items. And let me just make a note on that. I'm a big believer in openness. I think that the way that organizations gain credibility with their employees and with everybody they work with is to do as many things out in the open as possible, and make sure that people know they can contact us and they can find out about whatever's going on. That, for those of you I met around here, and I think Matt and Ryan, Susan, and Michael and I all share that belief. There are a couple things, however, as you can imagine, that have to be done by law in closed session. So, for example, today we're going to be officially approving a new CFO. Anything contractual that has contractual items or personnel issues, unfortunately, by law, we have to do in private. So it's not that we want to go into a secret room and do things in secret. We're just required by law, and hopefully people will respect that. I was thrilled that the previous board adopted a policy on releasing information from closed sessions, so at least there's a record with some of the personal items redacted. But the goal, I think, of the board is to do as many things out in the open as we possibly can so people know the good work we're doing and know the decisions and big issues we're debating. So anyway, the last formal meeting of the board was December 2012 here at the BBG headquarters in Washington. The minutes of that meeting and subsequent meetings are behind tab 1 in the briefing book. Approval of the meetings may place the new governors, Matt, Ryan, and I, in a very difficult position since we were in attendance for prior meetings. So the board's secretary has advised me that Robert's Rules of Order, of which a book I do not know in detail, so thank you, Paul. The board has agreed to use the bylaws that do not provide a clear answer to the procedural question, but Robert's Rules of Orders fortunately does offer us a path forward. So we may delegate to a subset of the board the verification and approval of the minutes, and the board may then deem the minutes to be approved based on that subset's approval. So I'm going to propose, therefore, that the board agree to deem the minutes of the prior meetings to be approved and adopted as part of the official records of the agency, so long as our new minutes committee, Governor Susan McHugh and Governor Michael Meehan, do not have any objection to their approval and adoption. Do I have a second in support of this proposal? Somebody second.
Are we able to second without?
You are able to
okay.
second.
I second the motion.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to vote on the process first. So we're voting on the process to designate Michael and Susan as the subset of the meeting of the board to consider the minutes, just for this one case. You don't have to do it all the time, just for this one case. So it's been proposed in second. All those in favor of this process say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes? Seeing none, I'd like to move that the board deem the minutes of these prior meetings to be approved and adopted as part of the agency's official records, assuming that, Susan and Michael, do you guys have any comments on the minutes? Michael?
No, I don't.
Okay, based on our new committee's approval of the minutes, I propose that the minutes be approved. Is there a second? Susan seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any objections? Okay, minutes are approved. I'm thrilled that the previous board adopted a policy for members of the public to speak to the board. I think it's important, and I think anybody who cares about us, whether we agree with them or disagree with them, is somebody we should hear from. So, as usual, we've asked the public who want to attend and want to speak to request a chance to speak for up to 3 minutes, and we're going to limit in this meeting and in subsequent meetings that to 10 speakers, so a 30-minute time frame to the extent we have that many speakers. I think today we have had one person sign up, so Lynn, if you could get the person set up, and whoever has signed up, please come to the table, introduce yourselves, and address the board.
This is on.
It's on already.
My name is Paul Westfielding. I'm the General Vice President of AFGE Local 1812
Welcome, Paul.
at VOA. First of all, a note of, I've got prepared remarks. I'll give them to you afterwards, but I'd like to read from them if you don't mind. A note of congratulations to the newly confirmed members of the BBG, and as the Irish proverb has said, may the wind be at your back as you seek to bring order to chaos in what was last year described as a very dysfunctional Board of Governors. Having said that, we all know that gaining control of VOA and the surrogate broadcasters is going to be a Herculean task. Restoring the confidence and trust of the American taxpayer and Congress, which controls the purse, will be an even bigger challenge. And that's where the AFGE comes in, the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 1812. We represent nearly 900 employees at VOA headquarters here in Washington, at various domestic news bureaus, the Greenville, North Carolina transmission facility, and the Office of Cuba Broadcasting in Miami. Bargain unit employees range from the people on air, like I used to be until I retired at the end of June, to the engineers who make sure the broadcasts are heard and seen, the writers, the producers, the web editors, tape handlers, and clerks, which I think we would all agree is quite a mix. In other words, we represent the boots on the ground, the people who produce the content. As you preside over the future of this storied agency and make the difficult decisions about how to proceed, AFGE Local 1812 extends its hand and asks to have our views seriously considered. We are open to meet with this board to discuss how we can help. Just as you're the decision makers for policy and for management, we are the representatives of the workers in the trenches on whose shoulders the future of VOA rests. These are tough times, and you will have to make some tough decisions. We all know that, particularly those of us in the labor movement. We will work with you, and we want to work with you, to keep VOA in the forefront of international broadcasting. What we ask in return is that you treat the people we represent with fairness, dignity, and respect. Labor management relations are problematic in the private sector, we all know that. In the public sector, VOA is no exception. What we do is enshrined in what's called the Code of Federal Regulation and Labor Management Statute. So, like it or not, we are in this together. I'm going to close by again congratulating you on your confirmations to a position like no other in the entire government. And if you will permit me, another slightly edited proverb. We hope dealing with our union is not about avoiding the storm, it's about learning to dance with the rain. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for being here today.
I've asked that these would be submitted as part of the record.
Sir.
Thank you.
Former NBC alumni, so happy to have him here. I also want to acknowledge Alan Heil, who I think is here somewhere. First thing I did when I was nominated is I read his book. Very helpful to me, so thank you, Alan. I think, Matt, you wanted to acknowledge somebody else who's here?
I did. One thing I didn't mention in my quick bio is that I was the executive director of the U.S. Advisory Commission on Public Diplomacy, and I'm very happy to see Catherine Brown, the new executive director of the Advisory Commission, which I'm also happy to hear is back and online. So I just want to acknowledge Catherine and look forward to working together.
Fantastic. So the next board meeting, based on an earlier vote, is going to be here October 23rd, and hopefully it'll be a much more regular agenda than this one. So I'm going to work closely with the other governors and the IBB director, Dick Lobo, sitting to my right here, to develop an agenda for that board meeting and board meetings going forward. Any board members who have an idea for what we should be talking about and other agenda items, please get that to Dick or Susie well in advance of the board meetings. Is there any other comments, questions from either the board or anybody who's with us today before we adjourn the open meeting? Thank you, whoever's watching, by the way. I think we're going to try to get I think now that I'm not watching the webcast, I'm concerned that we may have nobody. But
No, I'm watching you. You look good from San Francisco.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Michael's had plenty of coffee this morning, so I don't know how credible that is. So, anyway, so we're going to move to a closed session right now, but I'd ask anybody has a motion to adjourn the open meeting of the board. Somebody move.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That concludes
Aye.
our open meeting of the board. We're now going to move to closed section to consider our one agenda item for the closed session. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Did we do everything, Susie, that we need to, or did